Thanks so much for tuning in to the Happiness Happens podcast. If you're loving what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I would be so grateful if you could rate and review the show. It takes 2 seconds and it tells me what you're loving and what you're wanting more of. I'm your host, Simona Costantini, and I'm obsessed with understanding what it means to be happy. In 2018, I went through a massive journey and awakening, and I found myself having to relearn who I was and what I really wanted to do with my time on this planet. The truth is, I spent a lot of time looking happy on the outside, but not really feeling the same way on the inside. So I knew there must be other people who felt the exact same way as me, and I've learned along the way that there really are. And now I get to interview them and other thought leaders in the space on my podcast every single week. I'm a recovering people pleaser turned life coach and podcast producer. On this show, we get into what it means to be happy, the purpose and intention behind happiness, how to live a happier life, and we hear about all the hard moments that have shaped people to become resilient and living out their passion every single day. Think of this as your one-stop shop to help you live a more purposeful, inspired life. This is the Happiness Happens podcast. Are you ready to dive into this inspiring conversation? Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast. We have such a fun episode in store for you this week because Davina and I went so deep in so many different areas. Before I tell you a little bit about Davina, I do have to preface this that if you're not watching the video on YouTube, you won't be able to see this. But my dog is actually in the background of the camera and he's playing with his toy. So if we have a little squeaking going on, don't mind that because you know what? That's just the way it is. And he's such a fun part of my life that I just feel totally fine having him in the background there. So anyways, today on the podcast, we have Davina. And Davina was introduced to Sarit Shaer, a healer from Israel, by a friend who first performed Reiki on her. She was then inspired by the practice and went on to be certified privately by Lisa Powers. And she's also studied with many different practitioners in various spiritual fields. And for the past 10 years, she's actually been a student of Dr. Norman Suhu in BioSyntonie. BioSyntonie helps mitigate the negative effects of man-made technologies, including Wi-Fi, microwaves, and EMF pollution, while supporting the body's own healing resources. It brings the healing balance of nature back into your home, work, and body. She has worked with Eli Blilius, a renowned hypnotherapist in New York, trained by Dr. Brian Weiss. This experience inspired her to become a certified hypnotherapist by Stephen Burns and Kame Ramsey from the SLA. Rebbetzin Adele Miller, a great-granddaughter of Yaakov Yosef Herman, has also given her blessings to continue her work. The world-renowned Rachel Schwartz from the Kabbalah Center has also worked with her. In 2018, she completed her life coaching certificate from the TA. Using her own methods influenced by her experiences with these experts, she will help you implement new practices slowly that will change your life for the better. So this conversation with Davina was just honestly so mind-blowing. We really dove deep into so many different areas. We talked about things that we've never talked about on the podcast before, and I just can't wait for you to hear the conversation and to really hear all of Davina's insight, and she's just so magical. So I hope you love this episode, and if you do, please be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share with someone that you know needs to hear this message. It is the best way to get the podcast into the hands of those who need it the most. And without further ado, let's talk to Davina. Hello, Davina. Welcome to the Happiness Happens podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I know, I'm really excited. You have so many amazing parts to who you are and what you do, and I would love if you could tell our listeners just a little bit about you and the journey that's brought you to where you are today.
Great. So about 5-6 years ago, I was encouraged by a friend to visit this healer. And she told me that she worked on people by just using their hands, and she implemented a lot of crystal therapy. And I'm a very curious person. I was always very interested in spirituality, and I trusted her judgment. So I told her that I would definitely go. And at the time, I wasn't really telling everybody, but I had a little bit of an issue going on with someone in my family. I was quiet about it. No one really knew. So I went to her, and she was working on me, and she scans my body, and she goes, "What's up with you and this person?" And I looked at her like, how does she know? So she was on my right ankle, my right foot. And my right foot was killing me. I had all this pain. I didn't know what it was. I'm like, I didn't bang it anywhere. I didn't injure it. I couldn't figure out why it was hurting me so bad. So right when she was on that foot, she said, well, because of this issue with this person, the pain that you have in this foot, it's an emotional blockage. And I said, emotional blockage, what does that mean? And she goes, when we build up a lot of anger, or we build up a lot of sadness or depression from past experiences, literally from when we are babies, which is crazy. It could even go back when we are fetuses. It's insane. Wow. That energy can build up in different parts of the body, and everybody is different. So she said, have you ever injured this foot before? I said, well, I've sprained my right ankle a few times and it's never really healed. And she goes, that's why it wanted to go to the weakest part of your body. That part isn't healed, and the emotional pain, suffering, whatever you have accumulated since you were a child has gone into there. So what she does is she tells me to imagine this scenario that I had built up from, that pain had built up from. And she told me to imagine it in a better way, that this person was saying, you know what, I'm so sorry I hurt you. I won't do that again. And she took the energy out. She took the bad energy out. And from then, thank God, almost 6 years, no pain in that foot. Wow. So I was so interested, and I said, I have to learn what she does. There's no way I can go on without learning this. So I took a Reiki class. I trained to be a Reiki master. I became a Reiki master. And from there, just my love for spirituality grew, and I trained with other healers. I've had the honor of learning under other doctors as well, and different Kabbalists. Just I've gathered information from everybody, and I've made my own little system. And so my readings are basically I combine Reiki, I combine my intuition, and I help guide you. And I'm also a life coach, so I kind of made my own system of all these different aspects, and I help you heal yourself. I never say I heal anybody, because that's not the right way to say it.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
No, exactly. It's holding space for other people to have that transformation.
Exactly. And if any healer tells you I'm going to heal you, you need to run.
It's so true. Oh my God, it's so true. It is. It's really, really, really true.
True.
It's really crazy, because it's like we all want to find the answers. You know what I mean? We all want the answer right away. And so when someone, kind of promises you that, like, oh, I'm going to fix it, it's going to be fine, like whatever. It's like, maybe think twice before you drop that credit card.
Exactly. We have a lot of con men and con ladies out there. So
it's crazy. It's so true. So then now in your work as an energy healer, you're blending all of these different things together, these different modalities. And so what are some of the things that you find people, come to you with, or some big things that you help them transform through?
Well, because of COVID, I think the number one thing I helped a lot of people in was relationships and breakups, and just love finding somebody, because I realized that a lot of people, because they're really lonely, they're going back to toxic relationships and people that weren't serving them, and basically going on this hamster wheel of, oh my God, he's not respecting me, she's not respecting me, he's not giving me enough attention, but why can't I just stay away? And I help you understand why you can't stay away, because you know what? Sometimes we are incarnated into this life with somebody who has to teach us something. And until they teach us that thing, they're just going to stay there over and over. You're going to relive this over and over again. It's not the first time you're with this person. You just keep coming back because you haven't learned your lesson. So I kind of help you learn your lesson. So God willing, you end up with the person that you're supposed to end up with, and just make you a better person overall. Just implement more self-love, more self-care, and help you understand that, you know what, certain people are brought into our life as a test. And it's our job, with a little bit of help from other people. It's okay to get help from other people. I get help from other people. You can't be a healer without a healer to help you.
1,000%.
Otherwise, I'd be a
I
mess.
get all the help over here.
Exactly. Exactly. You would be a mess if you didn't have someone doing routine energy work on you, somebody to talk to. Thank God I have a network of people to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I do. I helped a lot of people with that. And I found that they just kept going back to the same people over and over and over again. So that was like the main thing during COVID that I think I really helped people with.
That's really interesting and not something that I would have thought, because you would think like in a pandemic, like you wouldn't go out, you know what I mean? Like you would be very, like you're kind of stuck inside your house, you know what I mean? But you're right, it gives people so much time to think and to process and to be like, oh, but I missed that, or I'm lonely, or that was great when that happened. But it's about like
Right.
feeling the fact that we're not there anymore, you know what I mean? It's like you've moved through, and how do
Exactly.
you move through and move on? That's really interesting. When you're doing your Reiki specifically,
Mhm.
I mean, like all energy work works with the chakras, right? But when you're doing
Yes.
your Reiki specifically, you're working with chakras. So, what can someone do to, realign to their own chakras and, maybe to create some kind of flow from top to bottom? What would be some things you would suggest?
So a lot of like simple things that I think everybody has heard like 100 times to do, but never really finds the time to do it is first, like yoga is a great thing to do to realign your chakras.
Mm.
Another thing that's really great is to go out barefoot into like your backyard and put your feet out there and just like walk around on the earth. That's a great way to ground yourself. Meditation is great. There's a specific meditation that you should do is you should start from your root and you need to go up and you have to imagine each root is a different color. So we go from like red, we have orange, yellow, the green, blue, heart to the top, the crown, and imagine that ball just like clearing that field for a few minutes and then just keep going up and up until you reach the head. And then like just do like a sweep. Or I always tell people who are very emotionally sensitive that when they wake up in the morning, they have to imagine this like white light surrounding them and that other people's stuff can't touch them. So I do that before I work on someone. I also obviously wear crystals because I've had times where I didn't clear myself the right way because I was in a hurry. That's not an excuse. That's wrong. And I felt sick for like the next few days
Oh,
because
wow.
I took on that person's energy so much. Because when I connect to your field, even if you are in another country, in another state, I'll know if I don't obviously like cut the cord that, you had an anxiety attack. You couldn't sleep the next night. Like I will pick up on those things and I will tell you that I picked up on those things and I have. So with this kind of work, it's really important to routinely realign the chakras because you don't want to carry other people's things. So those
That's
are
so
three
important.
big things people should do.
I love, love, love that. And then in terms of like cleansing your energy, people will talk about this a lot, right? And people will say, protect your energy, balance your energy, that kind of thing. Um, what does that exactly entail for our listeners?
Balancing the energy,
Mm-hmm.
protecting the energy, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Protecting. So protecting the energy is, this is very important. Learn to say no. No.
Keyword here,
Yeah.
everybody.
So
No.
keyword no. I said I wore this on purpose
Oh my God, I love it.
because it's very important. It's very important to learn how to say no. It's also very important to learn not to please other people.
Mm.
Being a people pleaser is a big sign of weakness, in my opinion. So when you're being stretched in 100 different ways, you have to sit down and say, like, is this good for me? Will this help me in the long haul?
Mm-hmm.
Some people say, oh my God, don't like be friends or be good to this person, in business and life and relationships because, connections need to be genuine. Yes, connections should be genuine, but
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, we are all in a way using each other.
Mm-hmm.
And when we all use each other, energy is, like sucked out of us in a way. So it's about choosing the right people that hey, they will help you climb to the person and be the person that you want to be. It sounds a little harsh, but at the same time, like we all need to eat. We all need to, have income. And it's about if you are like in one area of your life, for example, if like in work, you have to deal with somebody you don't like as much and you feel like they're draining you, but you have no choice. There's always a choice, but you also have a bigger choice, like in your friendship circle, not to hang out with girls or guys that are super toxic. You don't need to do that. So protecting your energy like that is really important. Limit your circle. Don't be around toxic people. If you have to be around toxic people for work, have boundaries. That's really important. Boundaries, and learn how to say no.
Yeah. I feel like that a lot of that is like easier said than done though. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
of course.
Right?
Of
Like there
course.
isn't a whole
Of
lot that we
course.
can choose, especially like you just said, like if we're working in an office, like there is so much that you can't choose, right? In terms of who you're
100%.
surrounded by. But I like what you said though about like having a choice, and it's like, what are you choosing? Whether you realize you have a choice or not, you still have a choice at the end of the day. And so how is it that you sort of create the reality that you want for yourself in the situation that you're in? I always look for like the bigger signs and like the deeper meanings and experiences like that. You know what I mean? If I'm surrounded by like, you know, an area that I really just don't want to be in, I'm like, what is it in here that I need to shift within me to get to where I want to go? You know what I mean? Because it doesn't
That's
really
so smart.
right?
Of
Like it
course.
doesn't have anything else to do with other people so much as it like everyone's a reflection in a mirror for you. And so
Exactly.
what I realized was like a lot of this stuff was just, you know, my own intuition telling me that this isn't where you belong. Like you need to keep growing, keep moving, keep expanding. But I feel like a lot of the times people end up getting so stuck in where they are, not by their own fault because they're not aware, but also in some sense by their own fault because they're not doing anything to change it. Right? But
Well
it's like
said.
you
Well
have
said.
to have that awareness. I think that awareness is so important.
And it takes work. And
Yeah.
you know, you've done the work. You are helping people do the work. So a lot of people won't be able to say that unless they've done it.
Exactly. And which is why I find these conversations on here are so important and so like eye-opening because I feel like when, you know, and this is why we have like different media, like podcasts and all these different ways to learn and to grow. It's about like, you know, how do you take the information that you received and, you know, transform it into your life to actually make an impact. And then, you know, through your modalities of healing, you're like solidifying and cleansing and taking out the things that no longer belong and allowing someone to tap into their own selves more fully.
Exactly.
So I'm curious a little bit about, because I know one of the things that you do and work with is the idea of that intergenerational trauma. So can you first start by like explaining what it is and then we'll dive in deeper after that?
So it's pretty heavy. I'm very cautious when I bring it up with certain people because a lot of people don't understand some of the problems they have in their life. And to be honest, I didn't really understand this until it happened to me. But you come in to this life with not just the karma of your past lives, whoever you were. You also come with the karma of your ancestors and things that they did. They were good people or bad people. Most of the time, unfortunately, it's bad. Let's be real. The karma is bad. So I'm going to give like an example of like the Kennedy family. Everybody goes, this family is so cursed. Why has so many bad things happened to them? There's actually a show. It's on I think it's like on one of the history channels of like cursed families. And of course I saw that. I'm like, oh my God, this is messed up. I gotta watch it. There's so much death. There's so much illness. And in birth orders, mainly like the first child comes in and they're like the person who like realizes all this generational trauma.
That's me.
We come in. That's why we are in this profession area, whatever, because we realized it.
Sense.
And then we're like the researchers, we're like the investigators, we're like, what happened? You know, what did great grandma do and great grandpa do? Guess what? They did a lot of bad stuff. So I actually had one of my cousins tell me, she's like, you know what? I went and I asked about all this stuff in the family. And I'm like, what'd you find? I'm like, I need to know about this stuff. Because I'm like the pillar of like the family that everyone comes to with like the stuff they hear from these healers and rabbis and spiritual. I'm like the spiritual advisor of the family. And they're like, you know what? They said that so and so, great, 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 did something. Oh, she was into, for example, witchcrafts. This is an example. And because she was into witchcraft, for 7 generations after us, we will deal with a lot of problems. Okay. And I was like, oh, wow, that kind of like makes sense. And I was at my favorite naturopath's office like years ago. And I was in a room alone. No one saw me but my doctor. And my doctor comes in. He's like, oh, one of my patients says he wants to meet you. He sensed your energy. I'm like, who is this patient that sensed my energy? He's like, oh, he's a medium. He's a healer. He cleanses houses. And I walk out to meet this guy, and this guy goes, there's a dark cloud over you. I'm like, what dark cloud?
Oh, no.
How creepy. I wasn't really like open up that much. Like, hearing this, it was scaring me. There's a very dark navy blue cloud over you. Navy blue. That's what I heard. He goes, yeah. Your family, they weren't really great people back in the day. Spanish Inquisition. Meanwhile, like, I'm Persian. I know that the roots like go back to Spain, originally from Spain, fled to Iran. This is more specifically my father's side. The fact that he knew all this stuff, he's like, yeah, your ancestors, they weren't really into, straight up, they were into black magic. Anyway,
Okay.
He's like, get out, right? He's like, yeah, they were into black. I'm going to just say bluntly, they were into black magic. And now like your family is dealing with the consequences. And I'm like, this is scary. So I'm like, how do I digest this? So obviously I go deeper into my Reiki practice. I meet other healers who I never told any of this to, but guess what? They confirm the same stuff. And this stuff is cleansed with Reiki. It's cleansed with deep Reiki. I would only go to a master for this and probably like a medium, because the medium can speak to people up there and kind of get more confirmation on things. But you're not going to hear everything that you're supposed to hear. Like, you're only going to hear things you're supposed to hear, not everything you want to.
Exactly.
Because maybe the things you want to, you might not be strong enough for it. So that was like the first time I really got introduced to it. It really freaked me out. But over time, the more open I got, and the way I was able to explain it to clients is, you know what? There are certain things that are on your soul that, people can go through their whole life with terrible luck and say, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? But once they do that clearing, like, life will just change and flip. And I've heard it from other people. I heard it from this woman who said that, my daughter struggled so much with guys, like this beautiful, accomplished, nice girl. She couldn't find, like, she had just terrible luck. Guys were left and right, like treating her badly, cheating on her, using her for her money, whatever. And then she went to this healer, and this healer said, you know what? You have something from generations ago. I'll take care of it. She took care of it. Like 6 months later, this girl is like engaged to her brother's best friend. It's like, this person is right in front of you, but there's certain things that block you from seeing it. So that's another thing that generational curses can do. Like, they blind you. They put a wall up of things that are right in front of your face. It's very intense.
Yeah, it's really intense. And so, does like the idea of like intergenerational curses, is that like the same as what intergenerational trauma would be? Or is like the trauma the byproduct of the curses?
The trauma is a byproduct, but it's also, it combines with the trauma that you have from like your past lives as well. So you're going to get trauma from your past lives. You can get trauma from your family, and then you can get trauma from your current life and what you're doing. But that's kind of like the combination of these two, because you're going to make a lot of the same, especially in love. Like the people we end up with, it's not like the first time we're with them. Like there's a million people in this world. Like why are we like connected to these, like, you know, this one person so much that we like have the need to like tie ourselves down to that person and like have kids with? It's because we've done it with them many, many, many times before. And I also explain to people that people who get divorced and people who, for example, like sadly, one spouse leaves the other's, like dies before the other spouse, that's also not it's planned, it's in the destiny, it's in their karma. Mm-hmm. And you can tell that a lot by horoscopes. Yeah, we have karmic signs, we have certain pairings that, this is like from some rabbis that I heard, there's certain pairings that like when put together, like they'll have like this many kids and like then they'll get divorced. There's like a whole science to like karmic relationships, which is so interesting. So I always check, like I'm weird like this, like if I hear about a couple and like, you know, unfortunately like they're on their way to divorce, like I look up their signs, I'm like, oh wow, karmic, oh how many kids do they have, oh wow, this, that. Or like even a celebrity couple who has like volatile relationships. Like I remember like looking up Whitney Houston and Bobby. And like, even in like the Torah, it says like the Leo Aquarius match can be very, very dangerous.
Oh my God.
Leo and Aquarius. It's just.
What about Scorpio and Sagittarius? If you don't remember off the top of your head, that's okay.
Wait, somebody asked me that recently. So weird. Scorpio and Sag is good.
Oh, that's me and my fiance. I'm glad to hear that. Woo-hoo, okay.
Scorpio and Sag is good. Yeah.
That's awesome. So how did you learn about this? Like these karmic relations, like this is so interesting to me.
Is it?
I've not had anyone on here talk about this, so like if you want to dive deeper, we can dive deeper. But if we don't want to, that's
whatever you want. I learned it from I learned it from the Kabbalist for the Kabbalah Center. She taught me a lot about it. Basically, just I read like literally every book by every head honcho from the Kabbalah Center, like Hamburg, just everybody. And I've also had like just. I have access to like great minds, great rabbis. I have a cousin who he studied with this like rabbi who does like birth charts, and he has so much knowledge. So I just like picked his brain about everything. He was very like specific into like the pairings, which pairings are good. And it came to the time where I became like so into this stuff that he's like, Davina, like we need to stop. I don't want this to affect your dating life. I'm like, no, it's fine. He's like, we're getting too much into this. But I think he was like very influential into this specific part of my learning.
That's so cool. I didn't know about like rabbis being into, I don't know.
Some are.
Yeah. Okay.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, the woman who taught me Reiki, she's very, very orthodox.
No way.
Like very orthodox doing this kind of work. So when people tell me I can't, exactly, how does it work? It's a great question. So a lot of people hear what I do and they're like, it's not kosher. It's devil's work. I'm like, really? It's devil's work? First of all, it's non-denominational. Second of all, the woman who taught me wears a wig and skirts. Am I doing that? No. So I think it's pretty kosher. And she studied in Israel. She taught me about crystals as well. She made me pick a few crystals from like a box of maybe 50. And I picked 5. And she goes, do you know how I know you're sane? Literally like this. Do you know how I know you're sane? I'm like, why? She's like, you picked 5. Perfect hand. I know when people have mental illnesses, when they pick more than 5. And I'm like, what does that mean?
You're like, thank God I didn't pick 6. No, I'm just
kidding. I'm like, thank God. I'm like, what? Right? She's like, every one of these represent what you need, what you have too much of.
Wow.
Yeah. So she was able to read me by the crystals. And this is what I tell people. I'm like, whatever crystal you pick up from my table first is what you need.
Always.
Yeah.
always guided by intuition with that.
Mm-hmm.
That's so important. This conversation has just gone in the best direction. I absolutely love this. But I think it's
Okay.
really interesting too, because it's like, it's that fine line for a lot of people between the idea of spirituality and religion. How do they blend? How do they come together? Where's the line? You know what I mean? I know some people who were very spiritual before, turned really religious, and then like denounced all of the things in spirituality. But it's like you can't knock something that brought you to where you are, because you never would have gotten to where you are today
Exactly.
without those experiences, right? Like you can't say that that didn't have an impact on you, or that it's not real, because you lived it and it was real for you, you know?
Like I was told by a Rebbetzin, which is like a rabbi's wife, also the daughter of this big rabbi. Her specialty is taking off evil eye. Anyway, this was before.
My nonna does that. My grandma does that.
Yeah.
Yep, we do it in her kitchen. And there was this one job that I worked this one time, and there was so much like negativity, like just, it was like really, really toxic place. And I came home from work, and I just remember saying to her, in Italian, it's called malocchio, evil eye.
Malocchio. I did an evil eye episode where I talked about it.
Okay, yeah.
You gotta listen to it.
Okay, I'm gonna listen to it. I'm gonna listen. I would love it. I would love it. So she does it with like water and olive oil. And and it was, I came home and I was like, Nonna, you remember like that, because years ago she did malocchio for the whole family. Like she did everyone's to cleanse everyone. Okay? And it's this part of like tradition that I find so powerful.
It is.
Oh, so cute. And I was like, I was living with her at the time, and I was like, Nonna, I feel like, you remember when you did malocchio for everybody? Like, can you do it for me now? Because I just feel like there's something. So my fiance and I, Steve, we're standing in her kitchen, and she's doing malocchio for both of us, and she does Steve first, totally fine, whatever. And then she does me. Oh my God, the amount of cleansing. She was like, someone has given you malocchio. Someone has given you the evil eye. And I was like, I know exactly who it is.
That's what she told me too. She's like, you know who it is. I'm like,
I knew exactly who it was. It was amazing. And as soon as she said, like, she does all these things, sign of the cross, all these different times, and repeats something in her, in Italian. And I'll never know what she's saying, because she's like, I can't say it to you out loud. You just have to know.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I've heard this.
Like, she's the coolest. Like, I should do a full episode on this, but like you should. Like, she does like, oh my God, she reads like dreams, symbolisms in dreams. She gets feelings for things. People show up in her dreams before bad or good things happen. It's really crazy.
Yeah, you should just like interview her.
She won't come on. I've tried. She's like, no, I don't want to.
Nah.
I know. I'm like, Nonna, please.
Nah.
She won't. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, my grandfather's passed away, and every time something bad happens,
she talks to him.
He comes to her dreams. So he came before COVID, and she.
That's a big deal, That's a big deal for them to come. They have to ask permission.
Interesting.
They have to ask permission to come. They can't just come.
Really? Who are they asking? Like, from you in your state of dreaming, or like?
No, they have to ask They have to ask the source. They have to kind of pitch, like, why are you going? Like, what do you have to say? Like, is this going to be for the greater good of this person? Or is this going to mentally affect them that they're not going to be able to steer on their path? Or interesting.
I think that's so cool, and it makes so much sense as to why some people get visits from people who've crossed over and some who don't. Because if you look at the people who don't, it's like, there's a couple people that come to mind with this for me, and I'm like, are you mentally strong enough to be able to handle that conversation? You know what I mean? Yeah. And be at peace with it. Like, okay, now we're on a full tangent, so let me tell you this other story. So I get this trait from my grandmother, but there was a couple years ago, 2019 in October, we put my dog down. And dogs, animals are like, their spirit, and they're amazing. And so anyway, so he crossed over, and I was like devastated by it for like a few months. And then finally one day I said to myself, I was sitting on the couch, and I was like, I just want to know that you're okay. So I remember we were sitting, it was obviously, this is in my dreams, we were at this cottage, and there was a big dock and a big massive lake, huge mountains. It kind of looked like a postcard. And we were sitting, and he had like a tumor under his paw. That's why we had to put him down, because it was too big and he was just too sick. And we were sitting at the edge of this dock side by side, and he had no tumor, and it was great.
Mhm.
And he was like, he was telling me like, I'm okay, everything is fine. He's like, I'm always with
Wow.
you, everything is great. And I was like, okay, okay, sounds good. And then I remember getting up, and there was like more to it. I don't remember all the details, but I remember getting up and I was like, okay, come on, like, let's go. So he comes with me and we walk to the car, and I was like, okay, come in the car, we're going home. And he's like, no, I'm home. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is crazy. It was wild.
That's wild.
It was
Oh my
wild.
God.
But from that moment, I felt so at peace. You know what I mean? You never know
Good.
if the decisions you're making are the right decisions, right? But when you open yourself up to the possibility that you can have that confirmation, whew, it's wild.
Wow.
Right?
Poor puppy.
I
Poor puppy.
know.
Yeah.
I know. Not to derail the
Yeah.
whole
So this,
conversation, but keep going.
no, that was cute, but did she ever do like the steel over your head, and like they shake the steel, like they heat up some steel, some metal, and then it shows. Anyway, she did that, and
Oh
then
my God.
I had 7 little twisted metally things over my head that looked like snakes.
So what does
I
that
had 7
represent?
evil eyes. I had snake
Oh,
people who were my friends.
interesting. So after you go through and you experience all these different things, like, do you feel at peace now when you look back on all of these different things and situations and people? Like, does
Oh
it
yeah.
cleanse that?
Oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. I'm just like, wow. I'm like, okay, I'm not nuts. Like there's certain things that just make sense now. After I did that, I gotta say, like that opened me up. She looked at me and she's like, you have a gift, but you don't use it.
And you're like, oh
And
God.
I was literally like hiding my gifts. Like I didn't work on anybody. Like I wasn't reading anybody. She's like, you have a gift. And then she looks at me and she's like, you need to become religious. And I know why she says that to this day. She said that to this day because she thought that that's the only way I wouldn't get judgment in my community,
Oh.
because only religious women are doing what I'm doing.
Oh, so you have to bring this in order to be like accepted in the community and not seen as like witchcraft, essentially.
Witchcraft. Yeah, essentially. But the fact that it's like COVID made people so much more open-minded that
Yeah.
I'm actually like looked at as, oh, this is cool, not like, oh, you're a little scary. But it's also because I know who I'm surrounding myself around.
Yeah.
There's certain people now that if I surround myself around and I talk to them about the stuff, it's like, and they look at me, I suddenly feel like pain in my neck, like my body hurts. I'm like, my
Wow.
body is rejecting people. My body is telling me like, these are not your people. Go away,
That's
get away from them.
crazy. That's so, so, so crazy. I'm just like so, I just love this conversation so much
Me
because
too.
it's like, it's just all these different topics are so important, in my opinion, to talk about. Like, there's so much more to like our life and our perspective than what we have in this current moment. And so
100%.
right? And so like every time you learn, every time you expand your perspective, every time you grow, you're giving yourself this chance to like heal in a different way. You know,
It's beautiful.
yeah, yeah. And so if someone, you know, if one of our listeners is wanting to start on their healing journey, or they want like some
Mm-hmm.
kind of component of
Mm-hmm.
all of this, what would you recommend in terms of maybe even the services that you offer? What would you recommend? Or if someone, you know, doesn't want a full service, like where could someone start?
Just start with the most popular thing for me during COVID was a distant Reiki session.
Mm.
Start with that. It's a good price. I connect to your energy. I find out what's going on. And then from there, like maybe we can schedule a coaching session, a talk, and speak on the phone. And I can, based on what you need help with, I can create like some kind of plan and some kind of like package for you. It depends. I'm really like able to work with anybody, any price point. I want it to be affordable. I
Mm-hmm.
know right now a lot of people are suffering. We're all suffering, honestly. But I want people to know that there's somewhere you can go and you can get help for certain things. Like you can talk to me and I'm clearly not going to judge you on anything going on because I've been
No,
through way worse.
exactly.
I've had experiences, if I talk about it, people are going to like send someone here to take me and put me away. Honestly, it's like I've seen it all. I'm not
Wow.
scared. I'm not scared.
Oh my God, I want to know. Okay, we're going to stop the recording real quick. No, I'm just kidding. Oh my goodness. It's really crazy because it's like, all of these different experiences. Okay, so if you think about all the experiences that you've had, how are you able, like negative or positive or whatever, how are you able to sort of come to terms with all of them? Because here's the thing, and I know this for a fact, when you experience something that's scary or energy that's not positive, like in light energy or anything like that, it's scary and it scares people.
Yes.
I know for my own self, like I've had this from like a reading from a healer before, and she was like, your spirit guides are trying to get your attention. When you see things move in your house, it's not a fluke. You're actually seeing it. Pay attention. Because I don't want to let that in because I'm scared. So I put up the wall. I'm not ready yet.
It's going to get worse. Just letting you know.
No, stop that.
That's what I was told for like 10 years.
Done. Just kidding. I'm starting to come to terms like with it. There's specific people that bring out that energy, and I'm learning how to deal with it because it's like it's exciting, you know what I mean? But I know that I know that my energy and my like my healing that I do, I know that's light energy. Like there's nothing.
Yes, you are
I know
white.
That it is.
White. It's white energy. It's white light. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Okay, so then tell us a little bit about how do you start to come to terms with all of these different things and like make them fit into your life, if you will.
Basically, I would just recommend that you should start with something small, like I was saying, with a small, I guess a Reiki session, but also just to take like full accountability of who you have in your life. That's really important. And like ask yourself like, hey, am I doing what I love? Does my job make me happy? Am I not doing what I love because of money? Do I like the people around me? Am I happy with how I feel every day? Not with how I look, more how I feel. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And just ask for help when needed. That's just really important. Don't be afraid of asking for help. If you want to get into this field, get into this field. We always need more healers. Don't say like, oh my God, it's too saturated. No, everybody has their own like beautiful spin on it, style, niche, whatever. And just like, don't care. Just don't care what other people think. That's really important. It's easier said than done. I know this is like very easy advice to give, but it's just simple. When you stop caring, like the world will change for you. And I also recommend for people to kind of get over their phobias. So I would suggest like going to get a past life regression. If you're stuck in this relationship that's not serving you, go find out why you're stuck in this relationship. Ask me for help. I can help you with that. And yeah, so those are the things that I would say, starting small, but seek out a life coach.
Very important.
That can help you if you're really, really stuck. Start small. Don't like just jump into it because then you're not going to stick to it.
No, exactly. It's like anything, right? It's like when you go to full force or something. Exactly.
And just read a lot. Read a lot is important. Read a lot about this.
I love that. Okay, Davina, this is my last question for you. And it's a question that I ask all my guests when they come on the show. It's how can someone create a little more happiness in their day, every day, starting today?
Wake up in the morning, look in the mirror and say that you are great, you are smart, you're fabulous, and that you're going to accomplish a lot for the rest of the day. Talk to yourself. It's good.
I love that. Love it, love it, love it. Where can our listeners find you?
Sure. So I have a podcast, Divine Healing by D. It's available everywhere you can listen to podcasts. You can reach me on Instagram, Divine Healing by D. And you can also email me, divinehealingbyd@gmail. And my link in bio on my Instagram has my website and all my information.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for coming on. It was so fun.
So fun. Thank you.
Well, it looks like we've made it to the end of this episode. I'm so grateful for you tuning into this week's episode, and I cannot wait to see you over on the next one. If you loved this conversation and this topic as much as I did, please feel free to leave us a rating or a review wherever you're listening. It takes just a second, and it is so important for us so that we can make sure to deliver this content to those who need it. I'm wishing you the most beautiful day wherever you are in the world, and remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.